Hello, my name is Mr. Fredericks, and today we have a screencast on President Teddy Roosevelt, perhaps the most progressive of all presidents. So we're going to look into him. Let's see how he was responsive and helpful to the American people. So just as context, Grover Cleveland was president in 92. In 96, William McKinley took over. McKinley is going to get elected a second time in 1900, and Teddy Roosevelt's going to get elected in 1904. So let's dive into that time period a little bit deeper. William McKinley was president of the United States in 1896, 1900, a huge time of U.S. expansion, but also a time of the progressive era where suddenly our society knew we had so many bad things we needed to fix. We needed a president to try to fix them. So come 1900, William McKinley's running, but needs a new vice president. And who does he pick? He picks the governor of New York, Teddy Roosevelt. Why would he pick Teddy Roosevelt as his vice president? Well, it gets a little complicated. Teddy Roosevelt was already famous, and that could help William McKinley get votes. Why was he famous? Well, in 1898, the United States under William McKinley went to war with Spain, the Spanish-American War. Teddy Roosevelt was a hero. He was the leader of the Rough Riders, and he helped win the Battle of San Juan Hill. There Teddy Roosevelt is on his horse. So again, very famous from the Battle of San Juan Hill. They even made a documentary about him, launched him into fame. So again, movie reels all across our country. Teddy Roosevelt was famous. He's now vice president. And how does he become president? I thought he was vice president. Well, that's complicated. On September 6th, 1901, there would be an assassination of President McKinley. President McKinley was basically somewhere. There was a long line of people for him to shake their hands, and the next person that rose his hand to shake William McKinley's had a handkerchief covering the hand. McKinley's like, well, that's weird. And once he raised his hand, it turns out there was a gun under that handkerchief, and he fired point blank President McKinley. Now, does McKinley survive? Nope. Sorry, suspense ruined. He dies. Now, why was he killed? Well, I have never once pronounced his name correctly, but Leon Schluggers, again, I'm sorry, but Leon was an anarchist. His political philosophy wasn't that of a liberal or a conservative. It was of anarchism. Anarchists believe in no government. They believe that government harms the working class, the people, that government is just a tool of the rich and basically spends all of its time suppressing freedom, I should say. And he's like, no person should rule over another. Everybody should be free. God created us all equal and free, and government just gets in the way. So once again, government's a puppet of the rich, and they exploit. In fact, the rich control, and the government controls the police. And whenever there's a conflict with workers or unions, instruments of the poor, the police come in and break it up and beat them. So there was some evidence of this. So McKinley, as the head of a government, was the most symbolic person an anarchist could kill to take out the government. Now, Vice President Teddy Roosevelt now takes over in 1900. Now, who was Roosevelt? Well, his political party, like that of McKinley, was a Republican, showing an elephant here. Obviously, a donkey would have gone for a Democrat. Now, he was also the youngest president we've ever had. How young was Teddy Roosevelt? Well, you tell me. He was 42 years old. 42 years old. Now, John F. Kennedy is the youngest elected president we've ever had at 43. Teddy Roosevelt became president as a 42-year-old. Now, the fact that, well, I guess I just talked about that. So, Teddy Roosevelt's going to be known as the man of the people, a tough guy. One, he was a boxer. That's part of his appeal. People loved him. He was actually blind in one of his eyes because of a boxing incident. He was known to be a wrestler, a horseback rider, a hiker. Absolutely tough guy, man of the people. Known as very powerful. Teddy Roosevelt's legacy is he increased the power of the presidency at the expense of the Constitution, perhaps. Originally, the Founding Fathers wanted our Congress, made up of many elected officials, to hold most of the power. We didn't want a king, but Teddy Roosevelt's like, no, we need leadership. And he's going to start doing things that previously no one had done. No president, only Congress. And Congress is going to let him. American people loved him that much. Now, Teddy served McKinley's last 3 years as president. And then, suddenly in 1904, he had to run for president in his own right. And run he did. And ultimately, he is going to be successful. And he wins 336 to 140. Now, why was Teddy Roosevelt considered the most progressive of all presidents, therefore the man of the people? Well, progressive action number one, the coal miners' strike in 1902. Pennsylvania, famous for its coal mines, is going to have those coal workers are going to have a union called the United Mine Workers. Now they are going to dig up a lot of coal, and they are going to be angry, and that's going to create a problem similar to if a bear was running at you, I suppose. Now they are working 10 hours a day in a mine. They feel overworked and exploited. Another problem is that these workers, part the fact that it's a whole lot of child labor, are poor. They're underpaid while the owners are rich, yet the workers are doing all the work. So in 1902, the United Mine Workers said enough is enough. 100,000 of them say we're going out on strike. Now the demands they have is they want an 8-hour workday, something unions have been fighting for some time, no longer 10, and they want a 20% increase in pay. What they're getting paid is pathetic. So did the owners listen? Well, I guess we can predict. Absolutely not. They wouldn't even negotiate, wouldn't even talk, wouldn't even recognize the union. They're like, you have no right to say anything. These are my mines, I'm the owner. Now, this is a message from the mine owners that kind of tells you where they're coming from. Now, the rights and interests of laboring man will be protected and cared for, not by labor agitators or unions, but by Christian men to whom God in his infinite wisdom has given the control of property interests in this country. So basically what the owners of the mines said was, God put us in charge of the mines. Clearly God supports us and not you. So you better do what we say or you're going against God. So they wouldn't even talk to the striking workers. Now, so while the strike was going on, the employers, the mine owners, they tried to hire scabs, replacement workers, also known as strike breakers. If they could hire scabs would come in and they would work and the mine owners would make money, and therefore they could keep going on and the strike would eventually fail. But the problem is violence occurred. As these scabs came in, the union saw the scabs as a threat to their cause, and they beat up the scabs. In fact, over 20 scabs were killed by the union. So at this point, the problem was not getting fixed. It was pure conflict. The owners aren't making money, the workers aren't making money, and people are dying. Now, so we suddenly have a new problem that exasperated this issue. Winter was coming. The strike had been going on for months. And as a credit to Game of Thrones, when winter is coming, if you don't have any coal for the country, innocent families from around the country are going to freeze to death. And that's a huge, huge issue. So Teddy Roosevelt's like, I've left it up to the mine workers and the mine owners, and they haven't solved this. I need to be a man of the people and intervene. So he basically says, mine owners, if you don't solve this problem, if you don't compromise, if you don't start talking with the union, I'm going to send the military and the U.S. military, and I will mine those mines. I will find coal for the American people. So this pressure by Teddy Roosevelt to get involved brought the mine owners and the workers together, so now they would seriously negotiate. Now the first thing they did was mediate. They got a mediator to try to work out the differences. Now, to understand what mediation is, that means a third party comes in. They have absolutely no power, but they're good at getting two sides to talk and coming up with compromises and getting people past their anger towards agreement. So mediation. However, that led to no agreement. The owners still weren't willing to budge. Now Teddy Roosevelt's like, well, I will force an arbitration. So the owners were like, okay, I don't want you to take over my mines. So they accept an arbitrator, which is different from a mediator. An arbitrator is a mediator only with power. Now their job isn't just to talk to the two groups to help hint at solutions. Now they listen to both sides, just like a judge would, and they make an agreement on who they agree with that is binding. So this is mediation with teeth. So which side won the arbitration? Well, it kind of turned out to be a tie that led to the agreement. First, the workers wanted a 20% raise. They got 10%. And the workers wanted to go from 10 hours to 8. You guessed it, they got a 9-hour workday. Teddy super happy. It never would have been possible. That compromise, that agreement, never would have happened unless he put that pressure in threatening to use the U.S. military to take over the mines. Teddy sent a message to all businesses everywhere. If you want to mess with the American people, you mess with me. And that alone is going to lead to businesses across America treating workers more fairly, because they knew they no longer had a president in the White House that was going to support business. Instead, he was going to support the working person. Teddy Roosevelt, power to the people. Now, Roosevelt called this deal between the miners and the owners a square deal, because squares are equal on four sides. This was an equal deal. Everybody won. So he was a man of the working people. Progressive action number 2, besides ending the coal strike and sending a message that he would support the people in labor management conflict, he also was a trust buster. Now, trust is a fancy word for monopoly. A monopoly is a business that has taken over an entire field. They are the only business left. Now, J.P. Morgan was a robber baron, also known as a monopoly leader, a trust leader. He owned the Northern Securities Company. Now, why are monopolies bad again when you have one company owning all the railroads? Well, when one company owns all the railroads, they can charge whatever they want. It's not like you can say, that's too expensive, I'm going to use the other railroad. They own all the railroads. So prices go up. Whatever the business is, quality goes down. Why would that company provide a great product if you have to take it anyway? So monopolies are bad for society. So under the Sherman Antitrust Act, which we've read about before, that was a law making monopolies illegal in 1890. Teddy Roosevelt is going to go after monopolies so that competition can exist. What I mean by going after, he will crush and split up monopolies, and he'll take a monopoly and split it into like 10 companies. So now we have 10 companies all competing against each other to make bigger and better products and provide cheaper products so the customers buy their stuff. So the Sherman Antitrust Act, bam. Here's Teddy Roosevelt in a political cartoon going after these dangerous, huge companies, using the Sherman Antitrust Act to do it. He went after the biggest of the biggest companies, the Northern Securities Company, which dominated railroads. Now remember, there really weren't cars or planes yet, so all goods in our economy ran through the railroads. Teddy Roosevelt broke up 25 monopolies. That's 25 companies that were split up, which now allowed small companies to exist, working companies, and it allowed consumers to get lower prices and better products. Teddy Roosevelt was known as the trust buster, breaking up, basically attacking the rich for the benefit of the poor, or should I say the middle class. This is, again, the beginning of laissez-faire being put to rest, to dying. Now we're not letting the government's not going to let businesses exploit people and just run amok. Now the government's going to go after these people and split up these big businesses and protect consumers. So Teddy Roosevelt's the most progressive president ever because he ended the coal strike supporting labor, and he broke up huge companies which helped out small businesses and consumers. He also ended unfair rebates. This one's a little complicated. In 1903, big businesses were crushing small businesses, and the reason they were able to do that is because all businesses needed railroads to ship their products. Now, railroads cared more about big businesses than little businesses because big businesses would pay a lot more to have a lot more products shipped. So for railroads, they would cut a deal to big businesses. They would basically charge lower rates. But then the U.S. government intervened and said, no, that's unfair. You need to charge the same rates for everyone. You can't discriminate between big businesses and small businesses. So then the railroads and the rich companies came up with an end around, a deal. Railroads were like, these rich companies give us so much business. By law, we'll charge them an equal rate to small businesses, but then we'll give them a rebate. We'll give them some of that money back later. Now, that's what rebates are. And the problem is, if you give the big businesses rebates, they'll get money back, which means they can charge lower prices for their goods, which means they'll get more customers and more money. So the problem with this is if big businesses are super successful, they can then buy up and destroy smaller companies. And that's called horizontal integration, when a company starts buying up all of its competitors and becomes a monopoly like that. So Teddy Roosevelt championed and passed and signed the Elkins Act. The Elkins Act made rebates illegal. So now railroads couldn't favor larger businesses and give them money back so that larger businesses would have lower prices for their goods. Now, rebates were illegal, and in theory, this helped out small businesses. And small businesses, we have more small businesses in America than anywhere else. It prevented monopolies from just eating them up. So Teddy Roosevelt was a progressive president because he looked out for labor in the coal strike. He broke up big companies as a trust buster under the Sherman Antitrust Act, and he saved small businesses by making railroad rebates illegal under the Elkins Act. He also made food safe. Upton Sinclair wrote a book called The Jungle and attacked the meatpacking industry and exposed a whole bunch of bad practices. They were doing so many terrible things. Teddy Roosevelt responded with the Meat Inspection Act, basically saying from now on, the federal government would watch meat packers, no more laissez-faire. We'll stop you from doing anything wrong. We'll make consumers and the American people safe. And again, that resulted in Americans feeling safe. So not only did Teddy Roosevelt end the coal strike, it broke up monopolies, helped small businesses by getting rid of rebates with the Elkins Act, he's also going to make drugs and food safe. In addition to the Meatpacking Act, after the Jungle, the Pure Food and Drug Act was passed, and Teddy Roosevelt pushed it through. The problem in society was that any old idiot like myself could come up with some fake medicine and say, hey, this is going to make you feel better. It's not, and the reality was it didn't. And the American people were spending millions of dollars on all these products and medicines that did absolutely nothing. Consumers weren't protected from anyone. In fact, often those drugs and that food was dangerous, and Americans would be hurt. But Americans didn't have a doctorate in food and didn't know any better. So these Americans at the time, particularly without the internet, needed to be protected. So the Pure Food and Drug Act was passed, and from now on, labels and ingredients needed to be placed on anything that would be consumed by the people. And this meant that companies could no longer lie about their products. They had to be transparent with what was in their products so they couldn't put dangerous ingredients in. And that's going to make the American people significantly safer regarding drugs and, of course, food. And under the Meatpacking Act, meat as well. Meat Inspection Act, excuse me. So Americans start feeling safe. So now Teddy Roosevelt ended the coal strike to help laborers, broke up monopolies as a trust buster, helped small businesses by the Elkins Act and getting rid of rebates, the Meat Inspection Act, cleaning up the food industry, meat packers, and the Pure Food and Drug Act. But Teddy Roosevelt also protected the environment. Now, the United States is a super beautiful place. Awesome. Love it. But in the 1800s, it was getting destroyed by businesses because the U.S. had a laissez-faire philosophy, and all the U.S. land was open to businesses making tons of money. Businesses could come in and just clear tons of federal land, clear cut it, destroy it. Many Americans are upset, particularly those that are nature conscious. They are so worried that the earth is dying, the U.S.'s land is gone. Not everybody agreed. Some people thought that this was good for the economy. Let businesses go out and ravage the land, use all of that raw materials, and ultimately that will create jobs, which is good for the economy. Now, what did Teddy Roosevelt do? He had three possible paths. Choice number one, he could follow famous environmentalist John Muir, which he knew, and accept preservation. Preservation is a philosophy that we need to protect all land. Nobody can use it. The land needs to be in a protective bubble, essentially as God left it, pristine, no roads, no anything. Now, a lot of nature people, John Muir, trumpeted that idea of preservation. Choice two Teddy Roosevelt had, laissez-faire. He could please the businesses and let them have full access to the land again, continue on. This would create jobs, and jobs are good. It makes the economy go up, and people then have money, and it creates money to feed their children, and that makes families happy and Americans happy. Good economy, good for a president. Choice three, besides preservation and laissez-faire, a compromise called conservation, not preservation, but conservation. Basically, another famous environmentalist named Gifford Pinchot believed in not preservation, but conservation. The idea that we're not going to preserve all this land, but instead we're going to preserve a bunch of it, and the rest we're going to protect and manage. What that means is we'll let the businesses have some of it to keep the economy going, and then we'll let them have a different part the next year so that the other part can heal and trees can regrow, things like that. We're going to protect some of it and kind of have a balanced approach to have a good economy while saving the environment. So this turned out to be a huge debate for Teddy Roosevelt between two people he loved and respected, John Muir, who supported preservation, and Gifford Pinchot, who supported conservation. So preservation versus conservation, which one's going to win? And the answer is Teddy Roosevelt sides with Gifford Pinchot. He basically says we need to conserve, but we also need to let businesses use some of the land to keep the economy thriving. In 1905, Teddy Roosevelt creates the U.S. Forest Service to conserve and manage all the land. He puts Gifford Pinchot in charge of it, not John Muir. Gifford Pinchot has to decide what businesses can use and to hold back businesses to protect the land. In 1905, the U.S. Forest Service, Gifford Pinchot's the boss, 150 million acres of land are added to be protected. Businesses can't touch them. And that's because of Roosevelt and Pinchot and the U.S. Forest Service. They literally sat down in a room and just circled areas of the country that were the most beautiful, that businesses weren't allowed to touch, made them national monuments, made them national parks. And today, those 150 million acres are protected. Businesses can't touch them. They make up the basis for our national park system. Here's Teddy Roosevelt and Gifford Pinchot. All of these lands are the most beautiful lands in the country, and much of it is the most beautiful in the world. And 100 years later, it's still here. It's still absolutely beautiful, and you can visit all of it. That's maybe Roosevelt's greatest legacy, putting Gifford Pinchot in charge of the U.S. Forest Service. Now, to show you what could have happened, this is the border between the Dominican Republic and Haiti. Nice little country border. Notice this is all trees, and this is clear-cut and destroyed. So don't ever say government can't do anything right, because this is an example of how the world could be saved and how the world, of course, could equally be destroyed. So Blue Hills is an example. Once again, you have tons of land there that has been preserved and conserved under the philosophy of conservation. Now, it's not preserved because there's roads running through it, but it's managed so that human beings can enjoy it. So progressive action number 6, we're almost done. Basically, Teddy Roosevelt was known to fight for race relations. On December 26, 1901, Teddy Roosevelt invited Booker T. Washington to the White House. Booker T. Washington was the top African-American civil rights leader. And by Teddy Roosevelt inviting him to the White House, he was basically telling the American South and everybody else who held on to racist ideas, no, I do not follow segregation, and no, I want everybody to be equal. African Americans have the right to have just the same rights as Americans. He totally rejected segregation, sending a message that it should not be accepted. And while this is only one incident, it is very important for a president to send that message to empower other people to fight for it. South was particularly angry because they believed in segregation, and African Americans had no place in the White House except as servants. Hopefully this was to be the beginning of the end towards racist thought. It's going to take a lot longer for major accomplishments to occur, still running up to 2020 and today. So, but it did raise African American expectations, thinking that they had aides and support in the White House. This is an example of how a Southerner congressman responded. Senator Bill Tillman responded, wow, African Americans now think the government is going to make them equal and free. We're going to have to kill thousands of them before they learn their place again. So once again, that's so depressing to know that's how a congressman would react. But it does kind of make it understandable how important it was for Teddy Roosevelt to start sending these messages for change to begin. So finally, a couple random facts about Teddy Roosevelt. Teddy Roosevelt was the first sitting president ever to leave the United States. He was the one to actually take the steps necessary to begin building the Panama Canal. Some say the greatest engineering feat up till that time in the world. And the United States is going to get that, which is going to be militarily important. We'll talk about that in a different presentation. He also signed the Treaty of Portsmouth. By signed, he arranged it. Russia and Japan got into the largest war in the history of the world in 1904, the Russo-Japanese War. Teddy Roosevelt got both of them to come to New Hampshire, Portsmouth, and to agree to peace, to end all that killing and dying. Now, that war is super complicated. The U.S. wanted that war to be peaceful because we did not want it to continue, because Japan was using that war to gain power, and that would have been at the expense of the U.S. So we had some motives here. Teddy Roosevelt is going to win the Nobel Peace Prize for creating that peace in the world. Teddy Roosevelt also signed the Gentleman's Agreement. Basically, San Francisco and California kicked all Japanese immigrants out of schools. Little children weren't allowed to be in white areas. This upset Japan to the point where Japan threatened war. Teddy Roosevelt negotiated a treaty with Japan called the Gentleman's Agreement, basically saying, don't fight us, don't start a war with us. In return, we will make sure all those Japanese children get into San Francisco schools. I will make sure of it. But also, if I'm going to do that, you have to promise not to send any more Japanese unskilled labor to the United States. The reason the Japanese are segregated is because the people of California are worried that we have too many people from Japan here. Straight up racism. But if you stop sending them, Teddy Roosevelt said, I can get their fear down and get your kids back into our schools. So, gentlemen's agreement, entirely a racist agreement, allowing all immigrants into the country except those from Japan and previously excluded in China. So, kind of not such a positive thing for Teddy Roosevelt. An example of a racist point of view. Teddy Roosevelt is also on Mount Rushmore. They had made Mount Rushmore to celebrate U.S. presidents. George Washington made the cut. Thomas Jefferson, Abraham Lincoln. They found that they actually had a little more space. And they were like, well, who else can we put up there? And Teddy was so popular at this time that in the 1920s, they added him as a fourth president. Now, one day, so when Teddy ended up, a famous story of Teddy Roosevelt was one day when he was hunting bear in the United States. He couldn't find any. If you're a hunter, a lot of times you can spend entire days or weekends not finding anything. So he couldn't find a bear. He was disappointed. Finally, his men found a bear. Now, the problem was the bear was really far away. Teddy was a long way off. So his men hit the bear over the head and tied it to a tree. Now, the problem was the bear was now really, really hurt and actually kind of dying. Teddy was brought back, said, I'm not going to shoot that bear. This isn't hunting. That's not honorable. It's young and beat up and tied to a tree. So a newspaper heard the story that Teddy wouldn't shoot that bear and then made a political cartoon, basically showing that Teddy was the most honorable human being ever. He wouldn't kill a bear. Now, that made this, more so than almost anything in pop culture, this drawing went viral, and people fell in love with Teddy Roosevelt, and he became the most popular American president almost of all time, and that was great. Now, he was a hero. America was in love with him. What a cute little baby bear. At this time, FAO Schwartz, the largest toy company in America, based out of Boston even, decided we needed a toy. They wanted to sell baby toys of bears. And they needed a name, and they said, you know what? Teddy Roosevelt loves bears. Let's call them teddy bears. Teddy being short for Theodore Roosevelt. So teddy bears are named after Teddy Roosevelt and the story. The ironic thing about the story is it's kind of totally not true. Basically, Teddy Roosevelt didn't say, let that bear go. I don't want to shoot it. He said, wow, that bear's dying. I'm not going to hunt it. Just put it out of its misery. And his men went over and cut its throat and killed it. So Teddy Roosevelt was seen as a hero that helped a baby bear. But in reality, he just said, I won't hunt it. Please kill it. It's dying anyway. So kind of a weird story. But yes, the origins of teddy bears. Now, for 7 long years, Teddy Roosevelt was president. And he said, I don't want to be president anymore. So one of his cabinet members, Taft, is going to take over for him, William Howard Taft. And we'll have another presentation about the presidency of William Howard Taft. Thank you, and you'll see your assignment in Google Classroom.